And this is on page 557, quiz 3. Okay, it says find the unknown angle measures. This is, it has one set of parallel lines, and it has one set of congruent sides. That makes it an isosceles trapezoid. So now we're going to have to look at our characteristics of isosceles trapezoids. If it's an isosceles trapezoid, its base angles are congruent. So we're going to go back over here. We're going to say, okay, we know that's an isosceles trapezoid. Let me get back to it. We know it's an isosceles trapezoid because the two sides are marked. Let me erase everything so you can see that. Okay, so that means the base angles have to be congruent, so that makes this one 55 degrees. And there's nothing to show there. Okay, again, this is an isosceles trapezoid. So what do you know about its base angles? Now you'd say, okay, well that's angle A and angle D. Well, guess what? Isosceles trapezoid has two bases. The top is also called a base. Okay, so if you flipped it over, then these would be on the base, so those are also base angles. So what is angle C? Oh, and it says find the unknown angle measures. I'm sorry, we didn't finish this last one. Okay, so we also know that since we have parallel lines here, these are consecutive interiors, and consecutive interiors are supplementary. So 55 plus angle C has to equal 180. Same thing is true over here. Because these are parallel lines, these are consecutive interiors, so they have to be supplementary. So 48 degrees plus angle A must be equal to 180 degrees. I'll tell you the answers at the end. Alright, so we have a 110 degree angle here. Our base angles are all congruent. And then we have, they're not congruent all to each other, but each set is. Since we have parallel lines with a transversal here, that means 110 plus angle D must equal 180. So that you can find them all, angle B is equal to it. Okay. Now it says the diagonals of quadrilateral ABCD are congruent and bisect each other. What types of quadrilaterals match this description? Now if you're using your flashcards, this will probably be easier for you. So we have a quadrilateral. We have to think of all of them where the diagonals would be congruent and bisect each other. So that would be true of a rectangle. They're congruent to each other and they bisect each other. And that would be congruent also, true also of a square. They would be congruent and bisect each other. Okay, let's go look at our theorems. Now with an isosceles trapezoid, the diagonals are congruent, but they don't bisect each other. Okay. For a rhombus, the diagonals bisect each other, not congruent. Okay, a rectangle has congruent diagonals. And since a square is a rectangle, it has to have congruent diagonals as well. This is why geometry is so much about reasoning. Okay, so a rectangle and a square. In quadrilateral EFGH, angle E is congruent to angle G, and angle F is congruent to angle H, and EF is congruent to EH. What is the most specific name for the quadrilateral? Now to do this, you're going to have to draw a picture. E, F, forgot the other part of it, G, H. Now it's very important when you draw this quadrilateral. It says that E is congruent to G and F is congruent to H. So E is congruent to G and F is congruent to H. And that makes a whole lot of difference. Then it says EF is congruent to EH. Alright, I'm going to have to bring this in a little bit so we can see it. Okay, here it is. Making it a different color because of the words down here. Okay, so once you've drawn this thing, you can see where your points are, and then it says EF is congruent to EH. And we've not drawn them to be congruent, but if our opposite angles are congruent, what do we know about it? It has to be a parallelogram. Okay, so a more accurate drawing of this would be like this. And if E and F are congruent to each other, since these are congruent, it has to be a rhombus. And if you don't draw this, you can wind up with any answer. There's actually nothing on this quiz about kites. But that doesn't mean there won't be anything about kites on your in-class quiz. So, your answers are, number 1, measure of angle D is 55, B and C are 125. Number 2, measure of angle C is 48, and A and D are 132. And number 3, angle B is 110, angle C and D are 70. Number 4, rectangle and square. And number 5, rhombus. Okay, I want to go over with you how to work on